Hello and welcome to another video by Perfect Scores. This is Preetinder Kaur and we are currently doing grade 11 biology. We have just finished doing the different kinds of tissue systems that are present in animals, and we did information on the epithelial tissue, the muscles, the skeletal tissue, connective tissue and all that. And now it's time to study the organ and the organ system and the morphology and anatomy of few of the animals. And what we are going to cover in this particular video is the animal called earthworm. So that belongs to the phylum Annelida, which we've already covered in the previous few videos. You know, it's a reddish brown terrestrial invertebrate that is usually present in moist soil. So we are going to study more about the earthworm in this particular video. And before we get started, don't forget to explore this website more, that is perfect-scores.com, for more such videos on related topics of grade 11 biology. And you can like us and share our page on Facebook. And if you have any suggestions or feedback, you can give it at perfectscores89@gmail.com. So let's get started. Now the earthworm, as I told you, it is an invertebrate. That means it does not have a backbone, and it's usually present in the upper layer of the moist soil. Now during the daytime it lives in burrows, and it has an action known as burrowing action. That means it digs holes into the soil and it swallows the soil, it ingests the soil. Now in the gardens, it's very easy to trace the presence of an earthworm because they leave their fecal deposits known as worm castings everywhere. So it's quite easy to mention when an earthworm is present. The common Indian earthworms, I'll just give you a hint of their name. It's called Ferretima and Lumbricus. These are the two commonly found earthworms in the Indian regions. So what we are going to do now is the morphology of the earthworms. That is, how is the structure of the earthworm from the outer side. Now the earthworm belongs to the phylum Annelida. That means it has a long cylindrical body and the body is divided into segments. There are more than 100 segments on the earthworm's body, and each segment corresponds to a different feature. Now these are known as metameres also. These segments are known as metameres, about 100 to 120 in number. Now the dorsal surface of the body, it has a dark median mild dorsal line. So let me write it down here. A dark median, that means in the middle, mid dorsal line. That is actually the dorsal blood vessel that is easily visible on the lower side, on the dorsal side of the earthworm body. Now it's there along the longitudinal axis. The ventral surface is distinguished by the presence of genital openings or genital pores. Eventually we'll also be doing the number of segments and which organs are there in which segment of the body. The anterior end of the earthworm, that means one end, that consists of the mouth and the prostomium. Now the prostomium is actually, it's like a covering for the mouth, and it's used as a wedge to put cracks into the soil, and then the earthworm can burrow into it. So it's more like a mouth guard or a mouth cover, a kind of a flap that covers the main mouth. Now the prostomium, it's actually sensory in function, means it can sense the surroundings. And the next part is the first body segment, that is segment number 1, which is known as peristomium. So the peristomium, it's also known as the buccal segment. So that is segment number 1 in the earthworm. Now one more thing you might have noticed as kids is that in earthworm, in especially mature, the bigger ones, the segments from 14 to 16, they look kind of united. That is actually a dark band of glandular tissue. So let me put it here, band of glandular tissue. And do you know what is this called? It's actually called the clitellum, a very important part of the earthworm's body. So that is the clitellum, and thus you can easily divide the body into three regions. That is pre-clitellar, that is the region that lies above the clitellum, that is till segment number 13. Then the clitellar and the post-clitellar. So I'll just give you an idea of how the structure is. So I'll give you an idea of how the structure is using a diagram. So that is what the anterior end looks like. This covering over here, this is the prostomium. And the covering is actually covering this part, which is the mouth. And the first segment is peristomium, that is this one. So that is segment 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So this is the peristomium. And over here you find a little marking kind of a structure, which we'll just do. So right now you can just note that this is known as the ring of Setae. Alright, so that is the mouth opening, the prostomium and the peristomium. And these segments that you can see that I've numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, these are not just segments, they are also known as metameres. And that is something that we've already covered. Now that is one side. This is the dorsal view. Coming to the ventral view, what happens is that after the clitellum, let me start drawing from the clitellum. And let me draw a few segments over here. So this segment over here, let's assume that's the clitellum. And coming to the structure now in terms of numbers of segments and what all is there in each segment. Now remember, there are 4 pairs of spermathecal apertures. That means total 8. So let me write it down here. Now where these are present, these are situated on the ventrolateral sides, and they are present from 5th to the 9th of the segments. Then there is one single female genital pore, one female genital pore that is there in the entire earthworm, and that is present in the midventral line of segment number 14. One pair of male genital pores is there. One pair, not just one pair of male genital pores that is present on the ventrolateral sides of segment number 18. And there are lots of other minute pores called nephridiopores that are also present. Now these nephridiopores, they open out on the surface of the body. And in each body segment except the first, last, and the clitellum. Now barring these, in each segment of the earthworm, there are rows of S-shaped setae. What I mentioned over here, the ring of setae, they are embedded in the epidermal pits in the middle of each segment. So if this is a segment, they will be embedded like this. And they can be extended and retracted, and the basic purpose is they help in movement and they help in locomotion. So that is the basic information that you need to know on the morphology of the earthworm. The next important thing is the anatomy of the earthworm. So first things first, let's start with the outer surface, that is the body wall. The body wall of an earthworm, it's covered by a very thin non-cellular cuticle a non-cellular cuticle that is extremely thin. Below that you have the epidermis. Then you have two muscle layers. One of them is circular and one of them is longitudinal. That means lengthwise. And an innermost coelomic epithelium. So that is what the body wall consists of. And coming to this epidermis, the epidermis is actually made up of a single layer of columnar epithelial cells, the ones that we discussed when we were doing the video on the tissues in animals. And those also contain gland cells. Now coming to the next part, which is the alimentary canal. Now the alimentary canal, it's a very straight tube. It goes from the first to the last segment of the body. There's a mouth that opens into the buccal cavity that consists of the first three segments, number 1 to 3. And then it leads into a pharynx. That pharynx leads into the esophagus, which is again a narrow tube. This is present in segments 5 to 7. After that, there is a muscular gizzard that is present that's present in the 8th and the 9th segment. Now the gizzard is present in lots of other animals as well. It helps to grind the soil particles that the earthworm has ingested and even to grind the decaying leaves. And then the stomach is there that extends from the 9th till segment number 14. Now the food of the earthworm is basically decaying leaves and the organic matter that is mixed with soil. Over here in the stomach, you also have glands known as calciferous glands. So these glands are present. They help to neutralize the humic acid that is present in the humus of the soil. So that is what these glands do. They neutralize the humic acid. Then from the 15th segment, the intestine starts and it goes on till the last segment. From the 15th till the last segment. And then there's a pair of short and conical intestinal cecae that project from the intestine on the 26th segment. That is known as intestinal cecae. These are conical in shape and they're there, and the characteristic feature of the intestine after the cecae, after the 26th segment, is that there is presence of an internal median fold of dorsal wall called typhlosole. This is there, a fold of the dorsal wall after the 26th segment. And the reason why this median fold is there is it helps to increase the area of absorption in that part of the alimentary canal, that is the intestine. And finally, this canal opens into the exterior by a small rounded aperture called the anus. And whatever ingested material is there, it passes through the digestive tract. Different enzymes are there, and these enzymes help to break down the food into smaller absorbable units, and these absorbable units are absorbed through the intestinal membranes and are utilized in the various functions of the earthworm's body. So the next thing we need to do is know about the kind of vascular system that is present in the earthworm. So that's the next thing you need to know about the blood vascular system of the earthworm. Now this is a closed system where the liquids, they flow in the form of tubes, and two kinds of tubes are there. You have vessels and capillaries. These vessels and capillaries are there along with the heart, So vessels, capillaries, and the earthworm also has a heart. And because it's a closed circulatory system, the blood tissue is confined to the heart and the blood vessels only. Contractions are there that helps to circulate the blood only in one direction. There are smaller vessels that help to give the blood to the gut, the nerve cord, and the body wall. Now, blood glands are there in the earthworm's body. These glands are present in the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth segments. They help to produce the blood cells and the hemoglobin, which is actually dissolved in the blood plasma. So, blood cells and the hemoglobin dissolved in the blood plasma. That is the function of these blood glands in segments 4, 5, and 6. And these blood cells, they are phagocytic in nature. So let me put this over here. Additionally, the earthworms, they do not have special breathing devices like human beings have lungs. The respiratory exchange is through their moist skin or body surface directly through the bloodstream. So I'll draw a diagram and give you an idea of how the circulatory system actually looks like. So let's suppose this is the outer body. So this is let's say one side of the circulatory system. So this at number 7 and 9, this extension that you can see, this is actually known as a lateral heart. So that is, both of them are lateral hearts. And this entire structure is the dorsal vessel. Coming to this one near segment 12 and 13, these extensions, they are again swollen. These are hearts, but they're not lateral. These are actually lateral esophageal hearts. So you can label it like this. And this one over here, this extension that you can see, this is known as the commissural vessel. So this, what you can see, is known as the subneural vessel. And this is the ventral vessel over here. Let me label it up. And then there's a third vessel over here that you can see, the yellowish color. That is another one. That is known as lateral esophageal vessel. So that is the other one. So you have three vessels, basically the commissural, the subneural, and the lateral esophageal, and then there's a ventral vessel as well. Now between the 10th and the 11th segment, I haven't drawn it yet in the diagram, but there are extensions that kind of loop around the alimentary canal like this. So they should be drawn in again red and blue color, but I'm drawing them at the end because they're looping the alimentary canal, which is the central coelom or the body cavity. So these two loops, these are known as anterior loops. So that is the entire structure that you need to know about the vascular system of the earthworm. So I'll quickly revise. There are blood glands between 4th, 5th, and 6th. The top one is the dorsal vessel, and over here it becomes the commissural vessel. The lower one is the ventral vessel, that over here comes to be known as the subneural vessel. And then third one is there, which is the lateral esophageal vessel. Now there are two lateral hearts at number 7 and number 9. There are two lateral esophageal hearts at number 12 and 13. There is a loop kind of structure that is known as anterior loops present in segment number 10 and 11. And that is all that you need to know about the closed circulatory system in the earthworms. The next important information you need to know is the excretory system. So let's do that now. So this is the innermost structure or diagram, you can say, of the excretory system. And let's say this is the segmentation. So this part over here becomes the mouth. These ducts that you can see, these are the ducts of the pharyngeal nephridia, where this part, this central part, that is the pharynx. And this upper part, that is the buccal cavity. So these tube-like structures that you can see, these are the ducts of pharyngeal nephridia. So there you go, the ducts of pharyngeal nephridia. And then there are some blood glands also that are present around here. So let me highlight them. These are the blood glands. Over here you have the septa, and there are structures over here in this part that are known as the septal nephridia. And then there are structures that are present on the skin that open outside in these segments, that is known as intergumentary nephridia. Intergumentary nephridia. So basically we can say that the excretory organs in a particular earthworm, they are arranged in the form of coiled tubules called nephridia, and they're of three types. So let me put it over here. And I hope you were able to observe from the diagram as well the three types. You were having septal nephridia, which is over here. The second kind was intergumentary nephridia, which is attached from the third segment to the last one that opens on the body surface. And the third one is the pharyngeal nephridia, which are present over here. So the pharyngeal nephridia, they are basically present in the form of three paired tufts in the fourth, fifth, and the sixth segment. So this one, it ends in the fourth segment, this one ends in the fifth one, and this one, the longest one, it ends in the sixth segments. Now these are basically similar in their structure. They help to regulate the composition of the body fluids, for example salts and osmosis and that process. The nephridium, it starts like a funnel. It collects the excess fluid from the body cavity or the coelomic chamber, and that funnel, it connects with a tubular part of the nephridium that delivers the wastes through the pore outside the surface of the body cavity. So that is how the excretory system works. The next system that you need to know about the earthworms is the nervous system. So that is what we are going to do next. So let us suppose these are the segments that I've internally divided, and I'm not drawing all the segments, just from segments 6 to 14, and then there's a gap, and segments number 17 and 18. Those are the ones that are most important. So let's go ahead and describe the different organs that are present in the nervous system in each of these segments. Now these organs that you can see, the four pairs, these are known as spermathecae. These two structures that I've drawn here, these are the testes sac with the testes. These green colored sacs that you can see over here, these are the seminal vesicles. So that is the seminal vesicles. These orange colored structures that you can see, these are the ovaries. So that is the ovary, and this funnel like structure, that is the ovarian funnel. This tube-like structure that you can see, that is coming from this testis sac, this over here is known as the vasa differentia. This blue-shaped structure that you can see, it's nothing but the prostate gland of the earthworm. And then there are ducts that come out of it that enter the 18th segment like this. And these are actually known as the common prostatic and spermatic duct. So let me write it down here. And there are glands that are present over here, that is in segment 17 itself, over here and here. These are known as accessory glands. So let me label it over here in this side. Now, since the earthworm has both the male and the female genitalia, that means it's a hermaphrodite, bisexual. The testes and the ovaries are present in the same individual. And there are two pairs of testes that you can see, that is in the 10th and in the 11th segments. The testes sacs are there. Their vasa differentia, they run up to the 18th segment, and that is where they join the prostatic duct. Now, there are two pairs of accessory glands. One is in the 17th segment. One is in the 19th segment that I haven't drawn because we still haven't reached the 19th segment. Then you have the common prostate and the spermatic duct, which is vasa differentia. It opens into the exterior by the pair of male genital pores that we did just previously. That is on the ventrolateral side of the 18th segment. So let me put it down over here also. The male genital pores, they open up into the 18th segment. And four pairs of spermathecae are located in the 6th to the 9th segment. There is one pair in each segment, which I've drawn in yellow color at the top. They receive and store the spermatozoa during the copulation. And one pair of ovaries is there in the intersegmental septum of the 12th and the 13th segments. Now, the ovarian funnels are present just below the ovaries, and they continue into the oviduct. They join together and they open as a single female genital pore. So single female genital pore, and that is on segment number 14. That is through this ovarian funnel. And there is a mutual exchange of sperm that occurs between two worms during the mating process. One worm has to find another worm and they mate in a juxtaposition, and the mature sperm and the egg cells and the nutritive fluid, they are deposited in cocoons that are produced by the glands of the clitellum. So let me put that information on the next slide. So that is what happens. All these three things, they are enclosed in cocoons that are produced by the gland cells of the clitellum. Now, within this cocoon, the process of the fertilization and development takes place, and these cocoons are also deposited in the soil. Now, the egg cells, also known as ova, they are fertilized by the sperm cells within the cocoon, and then the cocoon slips off. That is the next step that happens after the fertilization has taken place, and it's deposited in or just on the surface. That also holds the worm embryos, and after about 3 weeks, each cocoon, now this is an important thing to remember, it produces 2 to 20 baby worms. And the average is usually 4. So that is the number of baby worms that are produced from one cocoon. And as I mentioned over here, the earthworms are directly into the embryo stage. There is no intermediary stage, so there is no larva, and thus we can say that the development of earthworms is totally direct. So that is an important thing. Direct development exists in them. Now, earthworms are not really dangerous animals, or let's say dangerous creatures. They are also known as the friends of farmers because through their burrowing action, they help to plow the soil and they make it porous, which helps in the respiration of the plants, and it helps the developing plant roots to penetrate deeper into the soil, and thus they also increase fertility. And this process by which they help to increase the fertility of the soil, that is known as vermicomposting. So vermicomposting, their burrowing action, and the third use of earthworms is they're used as bait in fishing kind of activities. So that is a lot of information on the earthworm, and I hope you were able to understand it. And that is all for this video. In the next video, we are going to cover similar kind of information but on another animal, that is the cockroach. So don't forget to visit this website for more such videos on related topics. Explore this website, and don't forget to like and share us at Facebook, and drop in your suggestions at perfectscores89@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching this video.